Hello everyone, welcome to our NEXTLOOPP Americas Webinar. In the next 30 minutes we're going to be looking at how we're going to be closing the loop on food grade recycled polypropylene within our NEXTLOOPP project. Globally, there has been growing concern about the end-of-life destination for plastics. This has meant that many countries have set up plastic pacts that are designed to ensure that plastics are recycled at the end of life and that many products contain recycled content. Very soon we will see regulations emerging from the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee, which is meeting in Busan in early December. In the Americas, we've got a number of organizations that are working hard on ensuring that plastics have the minimal impact on society at the end of life of these materials. We have, of course, the US Plastics Pact, and it's setting targets of 30% recycled content and also making sure that 100% of plastic packaging is reusable, recyclable, or compostable by 2025. We have also the Polypropylene Recycling Coalition looking to increase the amount of residential recycling for polypropylene happening in the US. And also closed loop partners are supporting to build the infrastructure for collection and sorting of plastics. And the Circular Action Alliance is looking at EPR regulations that help companies take responsibility for the products they make. As you know, the NEXTLOOPP project is focusing on polypropylene. And why is this the case? Well, over 80 million tons of polypropylene are made globally each year. Yet only 1% contributes to the recycling rate. Polypropylene is an incredibly flexible material. It fits so many applications. It can be produced in so many formats and creates a lot of value in all the applications where it's used. And yet this low recycling rate is challenging this material, and there's no reason why it has to be at this low level. There are a number of reasons why we're creating the NEXTLOOPP Americas program. First of all, in the United States, over 8 million tons of polypropylene is manufactured, and approximately 1.225 million tons of polypropylene is passing through households, but not yet being recycled to any great extent. We'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a moment. The NEXTLOOPP project in Europe has prepared dossiers for food grade approval by the relevant food safety authorities, including the US FDA. The NEXTLOOPP project in Europe has had 4 years of experience in dealing with post-consumer polypropylene and has been working with over 50 companies on closing the loop on recycled PP. As we know, polypropylene is so widely used. It does have many positive environmental benefits, but these are maximized when we can create a circular loop on these materials to use them over and over again. And of course, there are savings in energy, there are savings in landfill, savings in oil, and of course, create also new job opportunities in the recycling sector. The statistics about the recycling of post-consumer polypropylene in the United States are very interesting. First of all, we can see that only 8% of the polypropylene that passes through households is actually recycled. A lot of that material otherwise goes straight to landfill. And of course, the recycling rate for polypropylene is well below that of PET and high-density polyethylene. But it doesn't have to be the case. And that's really why we are setting up the NEXTLOOPP program for the Americas. So what is the problem with polypropylene? Why has it been neglected in the collection and recovery of plastic materials compared to other materials like polypropylene and high-density polyethylene? Well, first of all, it relates to the format that it's produced in. It's typically produced as a pot, tub, and a tray, not necessarily as a bottle. Even though bottles are made, it's not typical for that application. Polypropylene is probably where PET was 20 years ago, which at that time was not widely recycled, but now has been recycled for many years because we have reliable processes that can consistently manufacture material to well-defined and high-quality food-grade standards. Given the nature of polypropylene and the differences with other bottle formats and the appearance of these materials as pots, tubs and trays, the NEXTLOOPP project has been working on creating solutions to the recycling of post-consumer polypropylene. We've worked on areas such as the separation of food grade from non-food grade materials, and we've also created a number of innovations that create higher quality materials that can meet the requirements of brand owners. We'll be talking about some of these later on in the presentation. The NEXTLOOPP Americas program has a number of key deliverables that I'd like to mention right now. First of all, we want to demonstrate that our technology to make food-grade material can work and achieve accreditation in the Americas. We would be preparing dossiers for the food-grade approval of the NEXTLOOPP process and any novel processes that are accredited based on some of the work that will be undertaken in the Americas. We want to implement the sorting protocols for the separation of food grade and non-food grade packaging, which is essential for the validation of the recycling processes. And we want to establish pilot facilities for the manufacturing of food grade PP and also develop guidelines for the circular economy, because these will be part and parcel for developing high quality recycled materials for polypropylene. And of course, we hope that the end result will be a boost to the recycling rate for post-consumer polypropylene, because we'll be creating a high value end market for these materials, and will also help develop the confidence for recycled food grade PP through the many trials that we'll be undertaking, and also the validation of the properties and performance of these materials. Hopefully we'll be able to achieve some of those targets that everyone's trying to meet, the 30% recycled content, and also we would like to see new recycling operations starting up that can create food-grade recycled PP with the NEXTLOOPP process or any other approved processes. I'd like to go into some detail about some of the milestones you can expect to see within the NEXTLOOPP Americas program. First of all, we'll be looking at auditing the waste streams where polypropylene occurs. And here we'll be looking to understand the composition of these waste streams so that we can identify the right sort of recycling steps to take and to make sure that we can meet the decontamination targets to allow for the compliance for food grade regulations. We'll be looking at the collection infrastructure and how that can be enhanced, and how we can work with the waste companies in order to collect more recycled polypropylene. One of the programs we'll start is the validation of existing recycling operations that may have non-objection letters but are not in the food grade area, and we'll be looking at how those operations could be validated to produce materials that would comply with the NEXTLOOPP standards. We would be also looking to run prototype runs of materials derived from the Americas and produce food grade recycled material based on those recovered polypropylene materials. Part of the process would then also be to undertake extensive chemical analysis and check the compliance of these materials to the relevant food grade standards. These resins, once they're validated, will go on to manufacturing trials and go all the way through to tests for processing, mechanical performance, and also compliance with food grade requirements, and that means filling and storage and stability. We would also look at the validation of the technical properties of the recycled content packaging materials. This is an important step for all the brand owners to make sure that there are no negative impacts. And if there are any new processes that are being developed in the Americas, and we do expect some to occur, we would be preparing additional dossiers for the US FDA for their approval. And based on the activities of the NEXTLOOPP project, we hope to see licensing of the technology across the Americas so that we can boost the rate of recovery and recycling of polypropylene packaging. And of course, in all of this work, there will be important technologies to highlight, important achievements to proclaim to the rest of the world that polypropylene is being recycled. And so this will be done through internal and external publicity. The way the NEXTLOOPP Americas program is that we'll be looking for companies to join the program. In the European program, we have brand owners, we have resin companies, we have packaging converters, we have technology supporters, we have industry associations, we have recyclers, and all of these companies are contributing to solutions to closing the loop on food grade recycled polypropylene. And we want the same sort of composition in the Americas, and we hope that this will create a new pathway for post-consumer polypropylene packaging and recycling. In order to make high quality recycled food grade polypropylene, we need to carry out a number of steps. The first one is the separation of food grade packaging from non-food grade packaging. The step after that is to decontaminate that material so that it complies with the same sort of requirements as virgin plastics in direct contact with food. For the sorting, we have teamed up with TOMRA and using their deep learning system called GainNext to do the sorting. We'll be showing you how this works in a moment. As some of you will know, artificial intelligence has been moving very rapidly to assist the sorting of plastics packaging. TOMRA have been using their GainNext system to identify packaging by their nature. Part of the NEXTLOOPP program was involved in training the equipment to identify food grade packaging and also to identify non-food grade packaging. So when we're involved in a sorting situation, the machine can actually identify each fraction and then create a separation of both of them. Our target was to create greater than 95% food grade packaging, and we've actually been able to exceed that target. We'd like to demonstrate the sorting of food grade packaging and how the artificial intelligence can help sort food from non-food materials. This system is running at 5 tons per hour in an industrial setting. The material being fed through has been pre-sorted so it is just polypropylene, and now we're going to separate food from non-food. As you can see, packs are being fed through. They're inspected for their polypropylene content and also identified as being food or non-food based on previous training of the system. And in the first step, we are deliberately ejecting the non-food fraction, but also the coloured items, which means that the packaging going forward will be natural and white, but all food grade. In this case, we've been able to achieve a high level of food grade packaging and achieving over 97%. This means that when we go to the next stage of sorting, which will be a manual inspection, it'll be a much easier task to approach the 100% food content packaging in the final accept. The next step in the recycling process is the decontamination of the material. And of course, I just want to say a little bit about the 3 stages in food grade recycling of polypropylene. First step, as I mentioned earlier, is the separation of PP from the plastic stream into a stream that is just polypropylene. The next step is the separation of the food from the non-food fraction, which you've just seen using an artificial intelligence system. The third step is the decontamination process. So in the case of polypropylene, we're conducting decontamination in the melt and then later in the solid state. This is actually quite an important step. It's also quite a demanding step because of the nature of the polypropylene and the limitations that are placed on the processing conditions for polypropylene. I want to say a little bit about the decontamination of polypropylene and how we test it. On the left-hand side, you will see a graph where you can see a series of peaks on a graph. This is the headspace gas chromatography mass spectroscopy trace for washed polypropylene flake. So this is a mix of food and non-food. Each of these peaks represents a molecule. Some of the peaks relate to polypropylene and others relate to chemicals that were in contact with food, such as flavors and fragrances and oils. On the right-hand side, we're having the traces after decontamination. The top graph is our food-grade material, and as you can see, there are almost no peaks at all. There are some very small peaks along the plot, showing that we've actually stripped out the molecules that have previously been in this material that could later migrate. These materials have no odor and much reduced fuming. And you can see in the lower graph, this is the non-food grade material. So this is the material that's separated from the food but has gone through the same decontamination process. And what we can see here is that this is almost identical to the top curve. In other words, there are no migratory molecules, and these materials have low odor and they are also low VOC. And these are applicable for many excellent non-food applications such as automotive and cosmetic applications. In our program in Europe, we have made multiple batches of post-consumer polypropylene back into food-grade compliant resin. We have 7 grades of polypropylene that have been manufactured, and they each have slightly different characteristics. Some of them are natural, some of them are white, some of them are colored. We have both the food grade and non-food, and we have some injection molding grades as well. These are the materials that would be provided to the brand owners and converters for conversion into finished products. As we move along the journey of the NEXTLOOPP program, I'd like to say something about the innovations that have happened during the development of the resins. As we all know, many polypropylene packages have print on them, they have labels, and they, in many cases, have also in-mold labels. The residues on the packages, for example, the labels and the inks that are on the in-mold labels, if they are carried through to the resin, they'll actually influence the color, and they could also compromise the food safety of these materials. So one of the things we've done is we've developed very efficient cleaning systems that can remove the labels and the inks, and this of course means we have better control over the color of the material and also eliminate any impacts from the pigments in food safety. One of the other important innovations has been in the area of removable in-mold labels. One of our participants, MCC Verstraat, has developed in-mold labels that will separate during the recycling of the material. In this case, what happens is the natural white pot underneath the label will get separated from the label, so labels will come off as lighter flakes in a simple air classification process. And this is one way of improving the design for recycling for the circular economy for polypropylene packaging. Another important innovation has been the development of alternative lidding to aluminum lidding, which is frequently used in drinks and dairy containers. The aluminum lidding can either result in rejection of the actual container during sorting because of the metal content, or if there are residues on the lip, which is very often the case, we end up with problems with melt filtration, and that creates significant recycling issues. So the conversion to a polypropylene lid material means that we eliminate the inefficiencies in sorting, and we also eliminate the melt filtration issues, which are quite significant for recyclers. A further innovation that has emerged from our work with our participants has been in the area of the removal of labels. Labels carry with them adhesives and inks, and the ideal scenario is that those labels and inks should be removable. And in this video you'll see that in this case the adhesive and the label can be removed in contact with hot water. And this is really quite an important thing, because the label then will be removed, and any components of the label, including the adhesive and the inks, will be separated out from the polymer, again improving the purity of the material and creating a better recycled product. The resins we've been making under the NEXTLOOPP program have been used in a wide range of products with our participants to make packaging materials that can be tested to ensure that these materials meet all of the requirements of the brand owner. So processing requirements, mechanical properties, and also organoleptic properties, both food contact, food taint, and also migration performance. The NEXTLOOPP resins have been used in a large number of commercialization trials. Over 54 trials have been run with our participants. So they included injection molding, extrusion, thermoforming, and film formation. Here are some of the products. You can see some butter dishes with 30% recycled content. Also some of the lids, and also closures for other products. All of these trials have been run very successfully. Here are a range of other products, complex injection molded lids, tubs, thin wall items, even foam polypropylene, extruded and inline thermoform trays. These have all been run very successfully in long-term production runs up to 5 hours, indicating that the whole process of making the recycled material, incorporating it into a manufacturing process, can be done on a stable basis, and also meeting all of the necessary requirements for the process and also the mechanical properties for these final products. One of the important steps for the NEXTLOOPP project is to make sure that the resins are compliant with the necessary food grade standards. In the Americas, one of our reference points will be the US FDA, and of course in Europe it is the European Food Safety Authority, and in the United Kingdom it's the Food Standards Authority. We have dossiers submitted to each of these organizations, and they're making their way through all those processes, and we expect to see the FDA approval coming in the new year. In the NEXTLOOPP program, we have been working with our participants. These included brand owners, resin companies, and converters. And of course, we are very interested in what their thoughts are, what their requirements are, and we listen to those requirements, and we also work along meeting their needs. Many of them want to have the experience of using recycled polypropylene back into their packaging to understand what the limitations are, how far they can go, what the ideal scenarios are, and also what their products look like when they're made with recycled materials. We can say that we're very pleased with all the interactions, and we welcome the same sort of interactions from NEXTLOOPP Americas. We're proud to say that the NEXTLOOPP project has won a number of awards. Some we've represented here, the Rushlight Awards in the UK, the Packaging Europe Awards for the Circular Economy, and also being the overall winner for the Packaging Europe Sustainability Awards, and also recognised by the World Packaging Organisation for their award for packaging excellence. We're very proud of these, and we hope that we can bring some of this innovation to the NEXTLOOPP Americas program. The aim of this webinar has been to give you an insight to the NEXTLOOPP Americas program, to tell you a little bit about our approach, our technologies, our innovations, and also the processes we'll be using to conduct the material going from post-consumer material to food-grade recycled resin. Our intention is to build the experience of recycled PP so that it can actually be used back into processes that will give us reliable supplies of recycled food-grade PP for use back into products. We want companies to demonstrate this on a range of processes, including extrusion, thermoforming, injection molding, and film production. And we want to see new recycling businesses set up that can produce materials using the NEXTLOOPP technologies to manufacture both food grade and inert grade polymer materials. And in this way, we hope to boost the recycling of polypropylene. I'd like to pause just for a moment so I can show you our contact details. You probably know me as the Managing Director of NexTech. I'm also the President of NEXTLOOPP Americas. My Vice President is Marcio Amazonas. He'll be the one steering the NEXTLOOPP Americas program. His contact details are there, and hopefully we'll be able to hear from everybody in the next phase. We'll be introducing companies to the NEXTLOOPP program in one-on-one sessions, so please let us know if you'd like to have such a session and we can organize that for you. And here is a small summary of the NEXTLOOPP program in a slide. It gives you a little bit of an indication about what we'll be doing, and of course we're very happy to answer questions and also have detailed discussions and show you how we'll set the program up. So we're looking forward to hearing from everybody in the very near future. Thank you for listening and hope you found it informative, and we look forward to hearing back from you very shortly. Goodbye.